one song. Maybe it's not real long. La la. It did not work at all.
So, as this is the first ever SYN Broly.
Sin Broly.
SYN Broly.
Throwing it up, bro style.
The All Dudes podcast by the Sign Your Name Project. We thought we'd talk about the idea of masculinity.
Yes.
Partly as a follow-up to our discussion last week where we talked about gender and gender-inclusive language.
Yeah.
And to focus more on this idea of masculinity from two men. So Stephen, where are you going with this?
I don't have to say anything because I'm a man. I'm wrong, and I'm belligerent about it. No, it's just it's something that's always been on the back of my mind. Because, well, let's be honest. When you see a 5'10", 155-pound guy who has long, scraggly hair, which, yes, I will cut at some point, who enjoys being in musical theater, who likes reading, who is respectful towards everyone. Is that really manly?
It's not really how it's not traditional American masculinity.
Yeah, and so what I wanted to discuss today in the last few minutes that we have is just why is it so wrong in some people's eyes, especially, and let's be honest, especially in some churches' eyes, when you don't fall into those gender norms where women are supposed to care for children and do this and that because it's the motherly, the feminine role, whereas men need to be leaders and men need to be upfront and do very masculine things and punch beef, while women say, you can't do it, rock, and then you punch the meat, and then you go to Russia and you beat Drago. Ivan Drago. He says, and then you finally bring together communists and Americans, all because of one fight. That's masculinity, right? That's what being a man is.
Wow, that just happened. Okay.
So traditional gender roles, are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? And
good and bad. It's interesting. I just up at my church this weekend, we had a chicken queue, which is we cooked like 400 chickens in a day, and sold them as a fundraiser and an outreach to the community, and it was very successful. My congregation did a wonderful job with it, but it was very interesting. The men worked the grill. The women sat inside and prepared the fellowship hall. Now, everything got done. It was very orderly, and there was an organization to the process, and it was great, and everyone got to feel a part. But there was this very clearly defined gender role, right? And so Sydney worked inside with the women, and I stood outside on the grill. I have no experience grilling. I found a job I could do. I got the spray bottle, and my job was to spray down the chickens periodically, and that was great. And I got
you don't want them to be overcooked.
Right. So, I found a job that I could do. But normally, I would have rather been at the theater, right? Okay? Yeah. I would have rather been at the theater. I would have rather been painting or something. Mm-hmm. That's not normally what I do. I'm probably the only male in my congregation that doesn't hunt for fun. It's not that I have a problem with hunting. I just don't think it's fun.
Yeah, I've never went hunting before. I grew up in Alabama where every weekend, you've had people come to school with their gun in the back of their truck because they're went hunting.
I mean, I'm from Texas, same idea, right? And I've always been caught up in this thing, right? That I don't like how masculinity gets expressed, and I don't necessarily even like how it gets expressed in the church.
Yeah.
And the church, to be fair, often does a good job of pulling out the positive aspects of masculinity, calling men to be good fathers. Okay, great.
That's a positive.
That's a positive. But it still sets but when we say be good fathers, there are things coded in that. Mm-hmm. Are fathers the one who stay home and take care of the kids?
No, be a good provider.
The mothers. Fathers are provided. I'm a crap provider. Okay?
Yeah.
I make less than my wife. I have for the majority of our marriage at this point. Okay? The majority of our relationships, Sydney has men more than I.
Right.
You know, I'm the
Until we
one who,
start getting big donors for the Sign Your Name project.
right,
If
but
you plan on donating, please
I'm I'm the one who mostly works from home.
yeah.
So at this stage in life, if we were to have a kid tomorrow or 9 months from tomorrow, I would be the one that cared for the kid.
Yeah.
Now, am I being a good father? I would argue I would be being a good parent, but I wouldn't.
But as a good father, no, you wouldn't, because father has these implications. You are the hunter.
Yes.
You have to go out and hunt for, money nowadays, so
Yeah.
that you can provide food for the gatherer. So yeah.
And that's fine for people who feel they fit into that role, right?
Yeah.
Like my dad's big into being a provider
Mm-hmm.
and big into providing fatherly advice, and that worked, right?
Yeah.
And so I had this great father in my life who was very much in the role of a father, and he likes to cook things, but it's mostly cooked meat, okay? And
Yeah.
he cooks it very well, and so he fits in that role. But I don't feel like I fit into that role, yet I still think of myself as a man.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about gender in the church and we talk about being a good parent or these positive aspects of masculinity we call folks to, because I don't think the church, I think it's advertising and general culture that's creating the kind of grunting, stupid American male who's
Yeah.
just overweight and drinks all the beer he can and doesn't really care what his wife says. She's just a shrew who, nags him all the time, and it's all really funny. If you get bored, or actually even if you don't get bored, look up Target Women on YouTube. It's videos by Sarah Haskins from Current TV from a few years back.
I remember watching those on
But it talks a lot.
Yeah.
They're all available on YouTube, and they're hysterical. And a lot of them talk about how gender roles get messed up, both how male and female gender roles get messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And that, men have to be these hulking, grunting, insensitive idiots. And where it starts, like, I know plenty of men that are like that, and I know plenty of men that aren't.
Yeah.
And so that's not really what bothers me. But some of it bothers me when, like, men now statistically take education less seriously.
Right,
because
because
it's considered feminine.
It's a feminine thing.
And so you end up with, like, it's great that now there are more, in a way, it's great that there are now more women than men in college, except for one thing. That statistically speaking, it's roughly equal.
Yeah.
It should be roughly equal. It should be 50-50 across the board. And then if you drag it all the way out, it's mostly 60-40. And if you're in public health school, it's 90-10.
Yeah. Definitely. And, that's when that starts happening, men get the idea that this isn't for me anymore, because in order for me to be a man, I can't be seen in a place that's majority feminine. And it's the same thing with the church. I happen to work in children's ministries.
Oh, how shocking.
Yes.
But you're a man, Stephen.
But I'm the only man in the two churches that I've worked and volunteered at here in Atlanta. I've been the only man working with children, because that's what I feel God has called me to do, is to be a masculine presence in a very non-masculine, non-male dominated, not masculine, male. A male presence in a very female dominated part of the church.
Don't look at me. I taught middle school and am getting a degree in public health.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Teach for America is majority women by a huge percentage, and so is public health. So, like, theology is, like, one of the few places where it's like, whoa, there are a lot of dudes around here. This is weird.
The problem comes when we are detrimental to those who feel called to a predominantly other-gendered area of work, church, family life.
Well, yeah, and that gets really weird when you look at the orders of ordination, right? So in the United Methodist Church, which is what Stephen and I are most familiar with, there are two ordained orders. There's deacon and then there's elder. Okay, deacons are called to word and service. And there's other language there too, but the basic idea is they're called to do those jobs that you don't think of as, they're actually pastors, but they're like music ministers, or they run the social justice program, that they're out in the world and they're doing amazing things,
right.
Okay? And then elders are called to word, preaching, order, which is running a church, and then table, which is communion. The sacraments, okay? There are very few male deacons, because elder has been ascribed to a male role, and deacon is often viewed as the more female order.
Right.
And so technically they're equal, There is not a hierarchy of orders, but you wouldn't know it the way it gets talked about.
Right.
And so what happens to a man who wants to be a deacon, or in Kathleen's case, and I'll speak for her because she's out partying, what happens when there's a female who wants to take on what's thought of the traditional male role?
Mm-hmm.
Both times they face an unfair uphill battle.
Right. And a lot of times one of the questions you'll be asked is, so why not the other one? Why not deacon?
Right.
Why not elder?
Right. You're a man. I actually have a friend of mine this happened to. You're a man. Why not elder? Feels called to be a deacon. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, these gender roles shouldn't be binding. They're guidelines. They're a suggestion. In reality, they're a spectrum.
Exactly.
And gender's on a spectrum. And while I consider myself a male, I do things that are on the what we think of as a more feminine role, right? I do a lot of the housework, or try to, and I love art and the theater, and I'm not really good at crafts, but I like going antiquing, and I can name you the type of the type of interior design I like. Modern industrial. Like I can do all that. I design,
and I can't.
And I did a lot of the design work for our wedding, right? And I loved that, of just thinking through the service, and how is it going to look, and how is that design going to go, and what outfits should we do, and is this dress going to work with this? Like, I love all of that.
And I chose a wedding date close to Christmas so we wouldn't have to deal with decorations.
Right. But that doesn't make you more of a man than I. It just means that how we choose to live is different.
Yeah.
And this gender roles thing, particularly in the church, when there is theoretically no hierarchy. You can argue the norms of society all day long, but we're supposed to be a voice into a society,
right?
Not merely going along with what's easy.
Yeah. I have a T-shirt from when I worked at Alabama Rural Ministry that says, "Not of this world," and that's designed to get us to understand that as a church, we are in the world. We are called to be in the world. There's no getting around that. However, the problem comes when we start to mirror that. We start to mirror that based on gender roles, based on politics, based on all sorts of stuff that the kingdom of God is not going to be like.
Yeah.
It says in the Bible, there will be no male nor female, Jew nor Gentile, all that good stuff. So gender roles as a social construct are there, but they shouldn't decide who we are as people, because no one should ever be ashamed because they do something ladylike, or you're just being too manly.
Yeah. I hate football. I love acting.
I love football. I love acting. Speaking of which, you can come see me at Northside United Methodist Church, November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, in your good band, Charlie Brown.
Yeah. And on that shameless plug.
It was very shameless.
Wait.
Yeah? There's one more thing.
Okay.
We're not going to put a link on, but go to YouTube, search. It's a show called That Mitchell and Webb Look, and there's a sketch that basically identifies like the media's perception of men and women. Look for man-female sketch. You'll know it when you see it, but it's hilarious. Once I find it, I'll have a link up on the Facebook page.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining us. If you ever want to catch us live, we record at roughly 8 p.m.
Or 8:10.
8:10 this week. We had some technical issues, but we're available live at around 8 o'clock 8 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday nights at nfear.org/live. As ever, the podcast is available on demand via iTunes or via the nfear.org website. If you have any feedback or suggestions for topics that you would like to see in future episodes, you can get in touch with us at SYN Boldly at nfear.org is the email, at SYN Boldly on Twitters, or facebook.com/the Sign Your Name Project. And on that, go in peace to love and serve the Lord, and end fear by signing your name.
Good night, folks. I forgot. Here comes Sid Bully Cat. Yeah. No, I don't hear the outro. What do you think, Sid Bully Cat?